Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen. With us for our program today, Assemblyman Mike Fitzpatrick. Mike Fitzpatrick representing the 8th Assembly District, which includes parts of Suffolk County. We thank you folks in Suffolk County and all across Long Island for tuning in for our program today. Mike Fitzpatrick, nice to see you.
Michael, great to see you. Glad to see you back on your feet. You've been,
everybody's good and healthy right
yes,
about now,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And spring has sprung. We got some beautiful weather
you
finally.
have that spring in your step after being a little under the weather. It's great to see you.
The grass is growing. The people are thinking about flowers and flower beds.
The pollen is out there. People are sneezing. It's great. Spring is here.
Are you going to be the downer on this thing?
No.
We got lots to let you folks know about what's going on in Albany. The tulips are in full bloom up here in the state capitol.
Just had the Tulip Festival here in Albany.
We did indeed. But we got to talk about something that maybe is a little bit depressing for the state capitol, and that's business as usual, Mike Fitzpatrick. That's we've seen in just the last few hours the reconviction of former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver. This is on the heels of his first conviction, the conviction of former Senate Majority Leader Dean Scello, some of Governor Cuomo's appointees, and that all comes on the news of last week's announcement from the Attorney General of the state of New York, Eric Schneiderman, that he was stepping down amidst allegations of abuse of women.
Yeah.
And what's
you know what's kind of strange?
Everybody that's watching,
the last few years we've had so much of this type of activity, and it's kind of strange. But when the Schneiderman news broke, it was like, not just here we go again or not again, but it kind of felt normal, which is really disconcerting.
No surprise, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Like when Elliot Spitzer went through that.
Yeah.
Whoa, that can't be.
Right.
It's like now it's, yeah. Another day at the office.
It's really troubling that, so many of us had that kind of reaction. It's like, oh well, just another day in Albany or another week in Albany, and there's something problematic about that. Is it one party rule? We are a one party state for the most part, at least at the state level now, which makes the upcoming election even more important. I mean, this should be a wake up call to a lot of people that we need more balance in the state of Albany. We need a healthy two-party system to keep an eye on each other to prevent this sort of thing from happening. Because when you have one party rule, and when you listen to news reports and the commentary and some of the background information that, some people knew that Schneiderman had these issues, yet kept quiet about it. Why? Because, well, they're all on the same team and they don't want any of that sort of thing to leak out or anything.
Look at how people are castigating the people who knew about Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, sure.
I mean, wink, wink. We knew about this for a long time, that this guy was doing these horrible things to women. But if I wanted to get a part in a movie or I wanted to get a deal with a studio, I knew I better not say anything.
It's kind of the same thing.
There's a lot of similarities.
It's a little bit of the same thing here. In this theater, after all,
the absurd? Is that
well, they do call it politics is show business for ugly people, as they say. But this is it. Just all of these issues, and back on Long Island, we have a huge trial going on with the former supervisor of Oyster Bay, the former county executive, and I've been reading that, and Newsday has been covering that quite thoroughly, and it's disgusting, and it needs to change, and people need to, I think the general public needs to pay more attention to this, because people tend to tune out. They're all the same. We get painted with a very wide brush when this sort of thing happens, but there are a lot of good people in government who are here for the right reasons. The problem is the bad apples get all the coverage, and given today's, if it bleeds, it leads, and we don't get enough coverage of real issues, but we get more than enough coverage of the sensational stuff, and to a degree this stuff is sensationalistic. But it kind of drives the point home for me with all of this. Ethics rules and all of this sort of thing, but it kind of brings me back to one of my original points, to change the culture. We need a culture change, and I make the argument, and this just keeps making my argument stronger in my opinion, and that is, how we are compensated, especially on the pension side. This defined benefit pension encourages longevity. It rewards it. And it also creates a culture where if I rock the boat and I lose, then I'm out of a very, very generous and lucrative pension system. And the major players in Albany, the unions and other major players understand this, and they know that it's very easy to keep people in line, either through threats. We'll get you in November if you don't come with us, and I've been the recipient of a little bit of that. Or play ball with us, and we'll keep you going.
And you'll reach your goal.
The endorsements and the campaign cash comes in. In fact, I was listening to a radio show driving in this morning. The Supreme Court just ruled in favor of the state of New Jersey to allow sports gambling. Now, get ready, folks, because you're going to start seeing that here. But will it happen quickly? Because they want the revenue, the easy money that gambling creates? Or do they wait a while and milk the issue because the lobbyists come out of the woodwork, the companies that want to come in and run the sports betting operations, the teams or other players, quote unquote, who want to come in and make this happen? Well, let's not rush too quickly because there's campaign money to be made here. Let's make some money off this first and then pass it. You don't want to pass it too quickly. Let's make them earn it. And that's the system that has, and it's not just New York, it's everywhere. But
New York's made it.
New York does it probably better or worse than anybody else.
Let me take you back to a second to what you were saying about the defined benefit system and the pensions.
Right.
Hasn't the New York State fixed that with this idea? And it went to the ballots. The people voted on a constitutional amendment that would change and say if you're convicted of a crime in your public position, you forego your pension.
The judge, it enables a judge to remove the pension from an elected official convicted of a felony while performing his or her duty. Yes, that was done through amendment, constitutional amendment. It passed two legislatures, which is how it has to be done, and then ratified in the following November ballot. Yes. However, I believe you have to go farther. There's no reason why an elected official, from governor to town council member, should be in a defined benefit system, because you are now aligned with the players in Albany. You are no longer aligned with the people who send you there, and that's the problem. We have this pay commission that they put in the budget to solve that problem. The legislature has not received an increase in compensation, at least salary, since 1999.
99, right.
And the proposal in the last commission, which the governor put the kibosh on since he had the majority, was, let's give them, if you just gave the legislature inflation since 1999, the way the unions get or have gotten over their contract negotiations, the salary level would be about $116,000. And when the editorial boards heard that, a lot of them put thumbs down. Should they be full-time, part-time? Well, if that's salary, it should be full-time, whatever. But I made the argument to Governor Cuomo when I had some quiet time with him at an event while that was going on. I said, Governor, I said, whatever that figure is, you should give us something that's fair, whatever that number is. But to make it fair, not just to us, but to the taxpayers, remove elected officials from the defined benefit system and put us into the same system that you advocated in your Tier 6 proposal, which he changed because the unions didn't want a defined benefit. They thought the camel's nose was going to go under the tent. But to the governor's credit, he did keep, hold the line in maintaining the option for a defined contribution platform to those non-union workers making $75,000 or more. And the reason he did that was because he had a lot of difficulty getting people to come and work for him, because people who want to come in for, say, 2 or 4 or so years, or say fewer than 10, you have to be here 10 years in order to vest. And it's a losing proposition. You just get 5% on your money if you leave before you vest. So people say, well, how am I going to save for retirement if that's all I'm going to get? And so thanks, but no thanks, Governor, I'll work somewhere else. But what we need to do is, at the very least for all elected officials, transition them from defined benefit, the traditional pension plan, to a defined contribution. It's fair to the members, especially if they're going to make a six-figure salary, and it's what the taxpayers deserve, because now we're not on the hook for that larger pension payment down the road. And I think it's critically important when we talk about this culture that we have here in Albany. If we are granted a salary increase down the road, and just for argument's sake, it's 100,000 or more, even if they make it full time, if we remain in that defined benefit pension system, I think that is a bad thing for New York State. Why? Because the control that some of the major players, the public employee unions and others, have in this state will be, the grip now is tight. It will be even tighter, because members will be very, very reluctant to say no to very powerful interest groups up here if they are at risk of losing a salary at that level and the potential pension benefit down the road, because that's a good salary. It would be a good salary at 100 or more, but that pension benefit is extremely valuable. So the only thing what we have to do, in my opinion, is to align our performance and our goals in office with those of the people who send us here, and not with the players who want to continue to take and take and take out of government, is to get rid of the defined benefit pension system. It is a cancer that has metastasized across at every level of government, and it is the reason why we have so much government, and it's also the reason why municipalities across the state are borrowing money in order to pay the pension payments. We can't keep up with this anymore. It's a system that's gotten so far ahead of us, it's going to sink us down the road. It is already sinking a number of other states who are woefully underfunded, and we're not fully funded either, by the way.
And we've only got about a minute or so left.
Yeah.
But you set up an interesting discussion before when you talked about how with sports gambling, it could come to New York, but it won't come too soon, because there's money to be made in the process.
There's campaign cash to be gotten.
But I think about the fact that there needs to be a new attorney general appointed by the New York State Legislature. Right. Imagine the process that's in place right now, to be inside the rooms where the wheeling and the dealing are all being done. We can only imagine the manipulations, the machinations, all that's taking place right now.
What's happening right now, because we are so close, it's an election year, this spot is on the ballot, and because the conventions are going to be held within the next couple of weeks, by the end of the month, it has really become a bit of a circus here, because when we did this the last time, when the legislature anointed Comptroller DiNapoli from the Assembly, I didn't support Comptroller DiNapoli, who's a friend of mine and a great man and a gentleman, but at the time did not have the credentials to serve in that post. Now he's been there 10 years. He's done a very good job and grew into the job. But at the time, there were better qualified candidates, and I voted for one of those. But we now have a real circus here, where the legislature wanted to pursue its objective of naming a successor. However, I think as more people, as the front runner, the supposed front runner, was starting to rise to the top, people saw there's becoming a political football, and now they back off the serious candidates. And now I think they're going to let the primary process run its course.
And you've taken me up to our final minute here. Got to go.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike Fitzpatrick, thanks for joining us. See you folks our next Assembly Calendar.